I'm Dr. Jeff Kaplan, and for over 30 years I've traveled the globe from Dubai to Moscow and Johannesburg, from Singapore to Shanghai and Istanbul. I've studied the world's best businesses and the people that run them. But something is very different now. From the boardroom to the break room, there's a growing realization that our relationship with work is broken. But it's not too late. You still have a choice. Hold on to the past and struggle to survive, or join the willing, change, and thrive in the world of tomorrow that's already arrived. So if you're willing to think different, willing to work different, willing to change at the speed of now, then you're willing to win. This is Jeff Kaplan, and with us as always is my friend and co-host Tara Thomas Getman. Hello, Tara.
Hi, Jeff. Whether you're watching us, listening to us, however you're hearing the sound of our voice, we're so glad you're joining us to be a part of the movement, the Legion, as we're calling it. But we really need to go back to square one and talk about what is willing to win. Tell us how it got started.
Yeah, I will tell you, whether you've heard the phrase willing to win or not, it's something you're feeling. Everybody's feeling it, right? We talked a little bit in our last episode about Alvin Toffler and how in 1970 he predicted the future we're seeing right now, which is a future characterized by change and the unanticipated, right? That characterizes every day, right? That used to be a special event. That's the new norm. And he told us this was coming. But what we didn't really anticipate is how much what the reactions would be by people that had to actually experience it. And I think everybody has felt a little bit of, anxiety or feeling a little out of place, or like they don't belong in this world. They're not sure how they're fitting in with all these new changes, right? And that's the anxiety that really is fueling a conversation that's going on right now that we're just giving a name to. That's all we're doing here. We're giving a name to that conversation about the future of work, and we're calling it Willing to Win, so that we can start to galvanize people all around the world to start to figure out what is it that we're going to accept in this new thing called work in the future. What is it that we're going to accept? What are we going to give up personally and professionally for our careers? What are we going to do in this negotiation for the future of work? And that's really what Willing to Win is all about. But if you want to describe the kind of energy that's around it, you almost have to go back to the beginning, back to 1976. And I don't know if you remember this, or maybe an older sister or your parents told you about the movie, but back in 1976, there was a movie called Network.
Yes, and, classic.
Classic movie. It got all the nominations that year, won several of the Best Acting awards, and the star of the movie was Peter Finch. He's a radio personality. He's been on the air, very successful for years, and he comes to a certain point in his life where he realizes that he really doesn't understand what it's all for. He doesn't think that we have a right direction, that change is hitting him in a way that he can't process. And I think that's indicative of really the energy that's fueling Willing to Win. We've got a clip of that movie. Let's take a listen to it, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy. It's like everything everywhere is going crazy, so we don't go out anymore. We sit in the house, and slowly the world we're living in is getting smaller, and all we say is, please, at least leave us alone in our living rooms. Let me have my toaster and my TV and my steel-belted radios, and I won't say anything. Just leave us alone.
Now, I tell you, I think everybody has felt, I'm as mad as HE double hockey sticks, and I'm not going to stand for it anymore. And certainly those are, periodic times in our lives. But it's now with this change that's building all the time. Unless we figure out a way to process that change and release that, angst and energy, it's going to be really a difficult process. I want to read you something that I wrote, Tara, here. This was written, it's actually part of a books series that's going to be coming out in a year. We'll talk a lot more about that on the next episode. But I thought this quote would really work for today's discussion. I wrote, in boardrooms, courtrooms, and classrooms, at the polls or in the mall, wherever people gather, there is a growing undercurrent of angst and anger and the nagging feeling that our social, political, and economic systems no longer meet our needs. And this is creating a new leadership challenge for a new generation that must answer the question, why doesn't our relationship with work? Now, the reason why I read that for you, Tara, is I didn't write that now to describe, what's going on around us today. I wrote that in 2015, right? Because we've been studying this for 30 years and we knew this was coming. And so that's really what today's show is all about, to try to describe what it is that the Willing to Win movement is all about and how people can participate in it. Because this isn't about listening to us. This is about going into your communities and taking actions. When you think about it, we are now at a period where we are renegotiating this thing called work, what we do and how we do it. We're renegotiating what we perceive as value. We are renegotiating our relationship with our customers. We're renegotiating our relationship with our careers. And most importantly, we're renegotiating our relationship with each other. And so I tell you, the one thing I remember from a political science class I had as an undergraduate, don't remember the teacher, don't remember my grade, don't remember anything else except for this gentleman standing in the front of the class and giving us a definition of what is political, because this is a political movement. And politics, in his mind, is anything that decides what, where, when, how much, and most importantly, at whose expense. Now, you may be thinking when I said politics that I was talking about the traditional politics that fills so much of our news. I'm not. I am saying that it is a political activity right now, a political discussion right now, a political renegotiation right now about the future of where we work and how we work. And unless we get involved, somebody else is going to decide who, what, where, how much, and most importantly, at whose expense, hopefully not ours. So
absolutely. And I'm glad you made that distinction, because we should qualify it that this in no way, Willing to Win, is not a political movement, like you said, from the traditional two-party system. So this is definitely not going to offend anybody who feels that you're coming down on either side of the aisle, because that's not at all behind your mission. I just wanted to interject that.
We are living in a world of correctness where even if I use the word politics in a sense, but it's good. It's absolutely right? This is not a political movement in that sense, but it is definitely one that's going to politically affect us. The politics of what I have to do every day. Do I have to go back to a job now after I've worked from home for a year and a half? Do I have to work for 40 years, or is there a different way? Do I actually have to work for a company, or can I work for several companies? What kind of work, should I do? These things are all up for grabs in this new negotiation called the Willing to Win. And that's what the Legion's all about.
That is so exciting. And again, we need you to join the Legion, to be a part of what Jeff is describing as a movement that we truly are a part of, whether we are formally acknowledging it. We are all part of how the pandemic really forced our hand to re-examine our relationship with work, and for many of us, how it's been broken for decades, all the way back to Peter Finch, as he expressed it nearly 50 years ago. So to join the Willing to Win Legion, it's real simple. You just go to our website, willingtowin.org. You can watch our episodes, you can listen to the podcast, read the blogs to learn more about Willing to Win and how you can get involved.
Absolutely. And when you think about the ways to get involved, you can set that agenda. We just want to know, what you're doing and how it's going, right? Because the whole thing is the Willing to Win conversation is what they call a zeitgeist. And a zeitgeist is that thing that everybody is talking about, but nobody gives a name to. And then as soon as somebody gives a name to it, then everybody goes, oh, we've been talking about that forever, right? And you've got a name, and now you're starting to, coalesce that conversation. And that's what we're trying to do, because Willing to Win is not just what we're going to do together as a Legion to renegotiate the future of work. Willing to Win is also those things that you're already doing today, that if we understood that they're there and we spotlighted them on this, and we spotlight them on this platform, well, then we can take your voice and make it that much more powerful, right? That's how we build a movement, a person by a person, an action by an action.
That's exciting. And it's really easy for you to go on our website and upload anything from your individual comment that you'd like to share. If you don't feel comfortable doing it on your tablet or your iPhone, you can simply email us. Also through the website, there is a sheet that makes it really simple to share with us, because we want you to tell us how all of the things that Jeff is talking about have impacted you personally, and his movement and our movement, collectively Willing to Win, can empower you to make a change and take control of your career.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are probably saying, what's the catch? Somebody's going to sell something to me. Hey, you guys, in a year and a half, there'll be 6 books out. And I do expect everyone listening to this and every member of the Legion to go out and buy those books as a show of support for the show and for the effort. But that is a year and a half away. What we're trying to do is we're trying to set up a new paradigm where we simply offer what we learn as we learn it, and we offer it to you for you to apply in your own life and to share. And the more we learn what can work, right? The more we learn how to negotiate what we're willing to take or surrender, then the stronger we're going to be and the better future we're going to create together.
Well, it's exciting, and this is already happening. Many people just aren't calling it what it is. They are already expressing their disdain and their frustration with the way things have been and the ways of work that just aren't fun when you're committing, what is it, up to a third of your life to this thing called your job.
2,080 hours a year for 40 years, right? That's a lot. If I were to tell you, Tara, this weekend, I would like you and Dave, your husband Dave, come over to our house, and I want to binge watch something on Netflix with you, right? Would you do that? I'll tell you one other thing before you say yes or no. There's one other thing. I want you to stay through the whole thing if we start. And there's 80,000 hour episodes, right? You may ask a few other questions. You might be hesitant to do that.
Right.
That's called your career, right? We're going to spend 80,000 hours there. So what better way to try to negotiate a better future?
Absolutely. And one of our correspondents, Alyssa Nolte, has been really capturing the essence of what we're talking about, how just like all those years ago in the 70s, people are mad and have now used these social media platforms to express how they're feeling. So we'd like to check out the latest clip that Alyssa found to really showcase what this Willing to Win movement is all about in terms of personal feelings.
We're finding so many examples of this in our world. It's happening all around us, and especially on social media. So many people are already Legion, they just don't know it yet. One example we found was a video from Brian Fretwell on TikTok. And Brian is sitting in his car in front of an Albertsons, and he shares his Peter Finch moment.
Apparently, somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 million people quit their job in the month of April alone. And as a former consultant, I couldn't be more excited about that number. I can tell you how many times folks like me went to companies and said, you have to make work purposeful. And so many companies took that and said, oh, okay, we'll have a really good meeting about a vision and we'll come up with some inspiring motto on the wall and that'll fix it. And they missed the part where meaningful work isn't just about the company having an inspiring vision statement. It's about people feeling like they're humans at work, which includes not having to work 80 plus hours a week and feeling like a number, which also includes not having to go to meetings that have no purpose and coming to the office just to make a manager with no skills feel a little better. And it certainly doesn't mean not being listened to while being required to listen. See, it doesn't matter how purposeful your vision for the company is if the people that do the work don't feel like they matter first.
We caught up with Brian to find out the story behind the story. Hi, Brian. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Hope really you guys are doing well today.
Absolutely. I hope you're doing well as well. So what were you seeing in your world that drove you to make a video on meaningful work?
I've been a consultant for probably the last 15 years, all around the world doing culture change and helping, companies, engage people, those sorts of things. And then I saw this number after the pandemic of the last year. A year ago, we saw this number, 11 million people were laid off, and it sort of went under the radar. People talked about it a lot, certainly, but there was no backlash to the business community. And then in April, we see this number that 7 million people quit their jobs. And then there's this real backlash that you hear out there. What's wrong with workers? And so I was just listening to it on the radio and just thought, maybe it's about time. and how many times I've been at companies, and especially companies even trying to do it right, that creating meaningful work is something that we give good lip service to, but we don't do in action nearly enough. And that I think, and so for me, it was this moment that it felt very validating that maybe people were sort of demanding it with their feet a little bit.
That's great. So one of the things that Dr. Kaplan talks about is that our relationship with work is broken. And what that means for the people who have to do the work is they have to figure out how to repair that relationship, how to renegotiate that social contract to build a better future for tomorrow's worker. So if you could wave a magic wand, how would you repair our relationship with work?
It's repairing our interactions with each other. I mean, very simply, it's asking better questions. I see so many places. I've done thousands of workshops, and it seems like every workshop somebody would come up to me and say, "Nobody hears me, nobody listens to me, I'm just a number here." And I don't know that that's just at work. And I think we have an environment where people just fundamentally aren't being heard. And I think we need to change the way we interact with each other and ask better questions would be my simple answer to, if I was to wave a magic wand, it would be to get people to ask more questions, which I suppose I've been trying to do for 3 years, given that was my TED Talk as well.
Thank you so much, Brian. You are a great example of the conversation we're seeing all over. From the boardroom to the break room, people are waking up and realizing that our relationship with work is completely broken. And that's why I joined the Legion, and that's why you should too.
Thanks so much, Alyssa. You can be a part of this conversation too, and you don't need a TikTok account to do it. Just go to willingtowin.org, submit your questions or comments, and just like that gentleman, you can upload a video that we would love to share on a future broadcast.
Absolutely, and it's that time of the show where we just want to take a moment out to thank some of our sponsors who've just been great and offered tremendous support to allow us a platform for the Willing to Win show series. So first off, we want to thank the Joint Chiropractic. This is, I don't know if you've seen this or not, it's popping up. It's one of the fastest growing
cool.
franchises in America. It is, and basically what they do is they do chiropractic, but as a regular thing, as a regular practice, as opposed to, this thing you do when you get hurt. They don't do x-rays, they don't take insurance. It's really inexpensive.
So you can get unlimited adjustments every month for one flat rate.
You get a pack of adjustments every month and go on in there, and you can be in and out in 10 minutes, so you can use it as part of your life maintenance, right? And there are great folks there that tell us that Joint Chiropractic, they've got our back, and I'm sure they do. We also want to thank Great Clips, another great franchise that's around America, has been around for a long time. They produce great work, and it's easy in and easy out. When you're ready to get your hair cut, go to Great Clips. It's going to be great if you do. And we also want to remind our listeners that if one of the things that you might be interested in as you start to renegotiate your own career in the future is whether or not you want to be your own boss. Do you want to go back to that job, and work for the people that you've worked for or the organization, or do you want to take a chance and go out on your own? Well, we've got a book that explains what you can expect when you do that process, when you go through to become a franchiser, and then also what to avoid, and to really ask yourself if that's right for you. And that's called Live It to Own It, and that will be out shortly. So we want all our listeners to be looking out for that.
Yeah, it's a great book. I've read it already. I've seen an advanced copy, and it's definitely worth a read for anyone who's ever driven by that franchise and thought, I could run one of my own. So thanks for sharing that, Jeff. And that brings us to our weekly segment, what we like to call the Uplift. This is where Jeff shares something that's not just memorable, but really a call to action for something we can do in our daily lives to just change the way we're doing things and take control personally, like you said, of how things will play out for us in terms of our careers moving forward. So share this week's Uplift story.
Awesome. Well, this week is all about deconstruction, and we're actually going to share a couple of secrets about what this show is all about as well. So deconstruction is, and you guys, the audience may remember back in grade school when we were in English class and the teacher wanted us to take a sentence apart and identify what's the noun, what's the verb, what's the adverb, right? And you start to deconstruct a sentence so you could see how it was put together, and ostensibly you can create a better one going forward. Well, what we're seeing in the world right now is the largest deconstruction of business ever, period. I mean, ever. And I don't know that we'll see another deconstruction like this in our lifetime, because question is, what do we do for work? How do we get things done, right? What do we value? How do we deal with our customers and really generate value and create relationships? How do we manage our careers? And how do we relate with each other, right? And so with all of that going on, we need to organize how we feel about it. We need to organize our negotiation for this future that we're all going to be a part of. Hopefully, I hope to be a part of it, and I hope all of our listeners are as well. But in order to do that, we sort of have to deconstruct the way that things were before and reinvent entirely new ways by forgetting about old assumptions. And that, Tara, is really, really hard. The example here that's probably the one the audience would know the best is what Billie Eilish is doing right now, music. I mean, you've got young kids. Do you listen to her music?
She's popular, and it's incredible how she really changed the way the creative process happens in the music industry.
Absolutely, because in a big industry, you have to go in and you have to work for a really long time and learn your craft and work under the biggest and best in the business for a really long time. And then maybe someday you'll get an opportunity and somebody will hear your voice. Billie Eilish said, no, that's not the way we're going to do it. I'm really talented. Her brother is really a talented producer, and they got together in her bedroom basically over a summer and created an album that went, top of the charts. And so she's producing these things herself. She directs her own music videos. She's in charge of her own career, and it's completely rewritten how we see music.
Yeah, and what's amazing is the way that she has sort of upended everything. It really contrasts with what you're talking about. This kind of thing was already in motion, but the pandemic really forced everything to finally come to a head, where now so many of these decisions are happening. But we're at a critical point, right? Because the window could be closing on that. So how do we capture that energy of this movement so that we get on board and don't miss our chance to make a change in our life?
Yeah, what you just described is the biggest threat we're facing right now, right? Because we really have sort of deconstructed everything. Everything's open for, potential change. But now that things are starting to turn around, from a medical perspective, globally, people are starting to feel more confident that the pandemic is a thing of past. The first reaction is going to be a knee-jerk reaction. Well, okay, we'll go back to the way things were. And I am telling you, there are a lot of workers out there that are not getting in line to go back for the way things were. And so what we've done here is we want to not only lead that conversation and help people decide what it is that they're going to accept in the future. What is the line in the future about what business can expect from its workers and what is no longer, up for grabs. So that's what we want to do. But in order to do that, we've got to live the same thing that we're preaching. We've got to go out and live that. And so part of that is, instead of doing what we would normally do, and I've been through it with you before, and the process is, you write a book, right? It becomes a bestseller. You go out and you give a lot of really high-priced corporate speeches, and you bring the word out to the masses that way. And then you go and you work for those large firms, and you get more knowledge, and that starts your cycle up, right? And that really isn't focused on the average person, right? They may work at one of those companies, or they may see the book on a shelf, but they're not really involved with the movement. And if they are, it's a process that's 2 or 3 years after the fact, because the book would have already come out. What we're doing, Tara, and nobody's ever done this before, is we're completely flipping the order, right? Mm-hmm. I attended an executive course at Harvard, and one of the things that they challenge the class to do is, if you have a sequential process, 1 to 10, and it's a known process, the way you add value is you find step 7, 8, 9, 10, and you try to find a way to bring it back to the front of the process. That's how you create value. For example, the last thing we used to do when we travel is we go up to the ticket counter and we get our tickets and go through security. Now the first thing you get, before you even get to the airport is your tickets.
True.
That's that innovation thing. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to deconstruct book publishing. First of all, we're going to show you all of our research, all 30 years. We're not holding anything back. We're going to give it to you. We're going to give it to you for free. We just want you to use it. And we want you to share with us how you used it so we can make it even better and potentially include your stories in the book, right? So we're going to do that, and we're going to do a book that's crowdsourced, that's crowd tested. We're going to go out in the world and actually put this stuff to use. And then when the books come out, it's going to be proven, and it's going to be proven by our Legion, which is really exciting.
It's so exciting, and it is so innovative, and that's why we need you to be a part of this conversation, and like Jeff said, help to actually write the book, to give us your human experience as our base for research. Go to our website. You can upload and share that material, willingtowin.org. Report back to us. Give us an example of how your relationship with work is broken and how you can be a part of the conversation to fix it. Wow, you've covered a lot, but there's a lot more to share. So each week we'll be back. You can check us out and get more content, because Willing to Win is a movement that we need others to hold our hands and join us to move forward with.
Absolutely. Join the Legion. And we just want to give a special shout out to some people that make this show happen every day. I want to thank our correspondent, Alyssa Nolte, for a great report. That's awesome. I can feel the Legion grow as we speak.
Some research is being done by our team, including Emily Hammer. Thanks to Mike Carlo and Deb Neerman, who do a great job with floor and studio management, and Susan Langman, who's behind our graphics and still photography. And we also have to give a shout out to Deb, Mike, and Sheila Kaplan, who've done a lot of the lighting and hair and makeup for those of you who can watch or see this broadcast, courtesy of Sheila Kaplan. And then post-production, our friends at Mud, Brendan Haggerty, and the whole Mud advertising team. They do such a great professional job making us look better than we really are in person.
Absolutely. So we want to hear your stories, and until next time, remember to be willing to win.